this is Lori from Shoo Paper Art, and today I'm making this really fun folded card. I'm calling it an open flip card. I'm not sure what else to call it. It works like this. Here's your front, and then you open, flip it back, and here's your second page, and then you can open it again, and you have this whole entire layout. Isn't that fun? Okay, it's easier than it looks, so let's get started. The first thing you're going to need to do is determine which die you're going to use and also what size you want your card to be. And that just kind of depends on how big the die is itself. My card ended up being 3 3/4 wide by 6.5 inches long. And that worked out really well for my size die. I still had a nice border around the cutouts. So that just kind of is determined by which die you want to use. So once you determine what size you want your card to be, you're going to need 3 pieces of cardstock. You're going to need 1 piece of cardstock that is exactly the size of the card. So 3 3/4 by 6.5 for me. Then you're going to want 1 piece that is 1/2 inch shorter. So for me, that's 3 3/4 wide by 6. And then you want a 3rd piece of cardstock that is the same width, 3 3/4, but is 1/2 inch taller. So for me, that's 7 inches. So once you have your 3 pieces of cardstock cut, you're going to start with the tallest piece. And on that tallest piece, on one horizontal end, you're going to score at 1/2 inch. And then you want to score at what would be the middle of your finished card. So that 1/2 inch is not part of my finished card. The rest of it is. So since my card finished length is 6.5, the middle is 3 1/4. So you're going to score at that extra 1/2 inch and then the middle of where your actual finished card is. So once you have those 2 scores done, you're going to want to create a template because I found that so much easier. I can make these lickety-split with a template. If I don't have the template, it takes me forever. So cut a piece of copy paper. This is thin copy paper, the exact size of your finished card. So for me, that's 3 3/4 by 6.5. Then to help me out, I drew the vertical middle line and the horizontal middle line in ink. All right, so once I had my template started, I picked out my die. Now, if you're going to use a die that, and I'm just moving this is my actual template that I started using. If you're going to use a die that's just a circle, the vertical axis doesn't make a whole lot of difference, but sometimes dies aren't exactly the same side to side or up to down. And since these are going to fold on top of each other, see that this one down here is going to actually fold on top, and I want it to line up pretty well, then I need to make sure it's the same distance horizontally, the same distance vertically, and also that all of those little scallops match. So I need to keep my die in that exact same position for each cut that I make on my cardstock pieces. So now you can see why a template really helps a lot. So I figured out where the middle of my die is vertically, and I put a T on there for top just in case I get mixed up or it falls out or something. And I used a little piece of tape, a little piece of a little piece of tape to adhere it in place so it wouldn't move. Then I'm going to start with that longest piece still, the piece that we did the 1/2 inch in the middle scores on. And I'm going to take my template and lay it right on top. Now I'm going to line it up with the score mark, because remember, this 1/2 inch isn't part of my finished card. In fact, it goes on back to make a hinged card. So it's going to completely be gone by the time I finish my card. So I'm going to line up my template with that score. And then I'm going to use a little bit of tape, a little bit of painter's tape to hold it in place. Then I'm going to run it through my Big Shot. After I've run it through my Big Shot, it's going to look like this. So there are my scores. This is my first die cut. Now, I need to cut a die in the bottom portion, and I need that die to be the exact die cut to be the exact same distance from the bottom as it's going to be from the top. So I'm going to simply use my template again. I'm going to turn this around so that the bottom is the one I'm using, and I'm going to take my template off of this piece that I was using as an example, and I'm just going to reuse it. Make sure my template's still in place, okay? And I'm going to line it up now with what will be the bottom. Tape it on, run it through my Big Shot. So then my piece will look like this. Here's the score at the top, here's the score in the middle, and here are my 2 die cuts. Now the next thing I'm going to do is move to the shortest piece. That will be the 3 3/4 by 6. So let me find that one. 3 3/4 by 6. Here we go. Okay. And I'm going to do the exact same thing. I'm going to use my template. At this point, it doesn't matter which end. I'm going to line it up with one end and run it through my Big Shot. Once I've run it through my Big Shot, it will look like this. So now I have my 3 die cuts, and that's all the die cutting I need to do. So now we're going to stop and think about how this card goes together. And I actually think that it's easier to go ahead and put the card together and then do the decorating on your card. So let's go ahead and start with this longest piece. Let's fold on the scores. I'm going to fold the top piece back. And I'm going to fold this piece to where it's a valley fold, or I'm folding it inside. And you have to be a little bit careful there in the middle. All right. I probably should have used a bone folder. Okay, once you've got the folds done, we're going to take that piece that we have the shortest piece that we have the die cut in, and we're going to actually glue these together, but only from the score down. We only want to glue it from the score down. Okay, so I'm going to use some glue. I'm going to be cognizant of where that score is. I'm just going to run my glue and very carefully along the top there. All right. The short piece goes underneath. The folded piece goes on top. I'm going to line those up, matching my dies and my cardstock, and give that a little bit of pressure. All right, now the next thing I'm going to do is take that third piece of cardstock, the one that's the actual size of my card, the 6.5 by 3 3/4, and I'm going to use this little 1/2 inch piece to make my card. So I'm going to run glue along oops, I can see that I didn't get this quite straight. You'll want to do a little bit better job than that. Okay. I'm going to slip this in there. Right up against that fold. And glue that down. Okay, once you've done that, depending on the thickness of your paper, you may need to cut that bottom piece. See, it's just a tad longer. And that's just because of the fold and the thickness of the paper, and it's real simple just to go ahead and trim that little bottom piece off. Okay, so here is basically the finished card with no decoration. You're going to open, fold back, and open again. Isn't that cool? I really think this is fun. All right, so now we're ready to do a little bit of decorating on our card. I used Stampin' Up stamps for these cute little mermaid and dragon and unicorn. It was called Magical Day. I think I got this last year. It also had some matching dies. You can of course do any theme, any stamps will work. Let's see, so I did a mermaid. Now you need to think about where you're going to do the background stamping. So for this mermaid, the actual decoration is on the back side of the short piece. Okay, so just do a little bit of thinking before you start stamping. So I'm going to fold this little piece out, and that's what I did. And I just kind of covered this up with a piece of paper so I didn't stamp on this piece too. And then I used, let's see here, Falling Circles. And that's from Neat and Tangled to create the background on the mermaid. And I just used a combination of fresh ink. I think this is called Chamomile, yes. And Simon Says Stamp Rosy Cheeks for the stamping of that particular stamp. Okay, so once you have your background on, then you can adhere your stamp. Then you can continue decorating the card. So we can see that the dragon, the background, is actually on the very back panel of the card. And I wanted to do a little sunburst, but I didn't have a stencil. So I'm going to show you a really fun, quick way to do this little sunburst in case you don't have a stencil either. I simply used a Post-it note and a piece of cardstock. These are the ones I actually used. They're already kind of inky. And what I did is I figured out where I kind of wanted this sunburst to start and covered up the portion I didn't want to ink on. And for me, that was about half an inch. Okay. And I marked the center of my Post-it note with just a little bit of ink there. And then this is my guide for making the rays. So I lined up my left point with the ink mark on my Post-it note. Now I'm going to tilt that down to where I'm going to start my first ray. And I use the same inks. So it's a little bit of ink on my sponge here. There's probably cat hair in my ink pad. Okay, and then I'm just going to start on my card, piece of cardstock. Oops, and I moved it a little bit, just putting it back in place. Okay, and inking along that cardstock. So you can see I have my first ray there. And then I went ahead and point, but make sure that point is on the little ink line, and angled it up a little bit, and Went ahead and brushed ink on again. Okay. Then I moved to the other side just to kind of keep it even. Try to do close to the same angle. Doesn't have to be perfect. On the other side, and then brushed ink on this direction. Oops, keep moving it, sorry. Oh. You can see it doesn't have to be perfect. Okay. And then once I had all the yellow rays inked, then I switched out to this pink. And I just kept it kind of low, but I did the exact same thing. I took my card and lined it up with where it was originally, following that yellow ink. And then just brushed on a little bit of pink, kind of down. I didn't take it all the way out to where the yellow is, but just a little bit of pink on there. So that's kind of pretty and fun. And I just did the same thing all the way around. Okay, hope you can kind of see that in the light. So that's kind of a fun way to do a sunburst if you don't have a stencil, which I didn't have. All right, so I finished this off with a hello stamp, some sequins. This side has some twine and a tag, and this was a little stencil that I had, a little mini stencil that I'm not even sure where it came from, and I just used the same inks. Decorated the unicorn, added magical wishes, and that was it. So this is a really fun fold card that you can use quite a few stamps and quite a few decorations on, and just have something really fun and unique. So thank you for joining me. You can always find me at shushupaperart.com.